Okay there. Well, hello, welcome. It's January 19th, 2021. Still getting used to that 21 thing. Um, I'm Joe Weston, and we're here for our weekly online global practice for reviving the global heart. And it's an honor and a pleasure always to see you, see familiar faces, and to see new faces as we gather from various places around the world to create community, cultivating with each other our own inner resources, our own sense of resilience and fierce compassion, and together holding on to this idea of a vision of a world that can actually anchor and manifest on this planet lasting peace. And we do that in this practice we call reviving the global heart, to really acknowledge that, to see with compassion um, and a low level of reactivity, to see the challenges that we are faced with on this planet, identify the causes of them, and when we can identify the causes, have more effective ways to see if we can shift that, to go from a planet that, according to how I see it, and particularly from the what I'm formulating in this new body of work I'm writing, the book I'm writing called Fear, Civility, Reviving the Global Heart, of listening to the words of both the Roosevelts, Eleanor Roosevelt and her husband, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who talked in the 1945 and in 1960 about acknowledging that what an amazing world we live in with the progress we have in terms of our level of technology, that it has brought so much, could bring about so much well-being and resources and information and shared power around the world. It's brought us all closer, that this idea of interdependence and interconnectedness really is manifested not just from a true place of all being inhabitants of this planet, but in ways that we can connect with each other and how we impact each other. And seeing that in that process of cultivating our, what I call technological nutrition, is that we've neglected on some levels our spiritual nutrition. And that while we may be technologically well fed and gorged, you could say, for some of us, that we may not be as well nourished spiritually. And that part of my idea of reviving the global heart is a reawakening to see how being spiritual is, what if being spiritual was actually a deeper commitment to global civil civic engagement, where we committed to being in the world in a way that is of service to others, where we're aware of our own patterns. We start with ourselves, checking our own thoughts, words, and actions before we start judging others. We clarify that. We see the mess that we've made in terms of how we may have harmed people or how we have harmed ourselves or the environment, and make amends and try to find new ways of being with that, where we commit to a deeper level of seeing ourselves as nurturers and protectors for others on this planet who are in need of nurturing and protecting. And that we take the time to examine that maybe the way we see things might not be the way things are. And that if we're lucky, we can get close to getting a sense of seeing things the way things are, but that accepting the fact that simply because we're human, we can't possibly know everything, and that our view of things are limited. And to investigate that and find ways to increase our knowledge, to increase our fact collecting. And what I advocate for is that the most effective way for us to increase how much we know is to engage with people who are different from us, and that they have a lot to teach us. We may not like the lessons. We may not, it may be like an untasty kind of medicine we have to take, but sometimes that's the best medicine, right? And that is the essence of this work, and in a sense, what I'd like to talk about today. We've been going through, I just want to say that I want to bring some of this up in the context of what's unfolding in this country. I'm currently sitting in the United States of America, in the city called Washington, D.C. So I'm very much on my mind what's happening this week, and I'm sure for many of us as well around the world. And that I was talking with a group of people yesterday about this, about how to see this as a moment of. We're looking already. Moment of possibility, emphasis. If depending on how we approach this, to see this as a moment of opportunity. We've been woken up in a way by Corona, by the virus, by the pandemic, by the economic struggles, by the awakening of more people recognizing economic and racial injustice and disparities around the world. Let's take advantage of this wake-up call, awakening, and what we've seen, and particularly what happened 2 weeks ago at the Capitol here in the United States, to see that there's a lot of work to do. And that's simply because we're shifting an administration, and we might get policies that may benefit more what we find beneficial. That doesn't mean that the causes of the problems have gone away. And I'm not saying anything you don't already know. I'm just putting that in a context that, because the question is, whose job is it to do it? It's easy to just say, so I'm watching Mariana pointing like this. Yeah, you got it. Whose job is it to do it? You know, we can easily say that's for other people to do. I'll just donate money, which is great, or those people are supposed to take care of it. But in this idea of seeing what is spiritual, what brings us spiritual nourishment, and what revives the global heart, if you see it, each one of us investing in a deeper global civic engagement, it's up to us. And in essence, how can we take our ordinary lives, turn them into extraordinary lives by thinking in every day, what can I do today that I didn't do yesterday? I don't have to do it all. I don't have to take it all on. But if every day I can think of something else that I can do to be of service to others, to contribute to the well-being of more people, to not be part of the polarization noise that's out there. There's so many ways that we can consciously choose into a deeper level of global civic engagement for ourselves, for others, for all beings on this planet, and for the planet itself. And part of this practice is to support one another in that, to inspire one another. And we've been doing that. Let's see, how do I bring in this context? So we've been working with this idea of something that I've been exploring, is where we're at, looking at it from the 8 ailments and the 8 remedies. And that you could say what is the ailments are what's causing a technologically advanced and well-nourished world and a spiritually depleted world that we're all suffering from on some levels and experiencing. And I'm going to name all 8 again. If someone would be so kind as to type in the chat what they are, we should just have that. We should just copy and paste it. We've explored inner storm already. We've paralysis, fear. Today we'll look at separation, and the others are isolation, arrogance, self-righteousness, and greed. And that it's not saying that we all commit deeds according to that, but on some levels, we're all on some level, either in our thoughts, our words, and our actions, experiencing that or suffering from it, or are influenced by it. And that this is what I call the 8 ailments. And that what I'm offering in this practice is remedies for each ailment. And each remedy is a statement that we take. And the more you repeat it, the statement, and you really start living into that statement and feeling it in your nervous system, in your body, in your heart, and start walking through the world from that place, that's how you can make the transition or transformation from an ailment to actually a superpower, you could say. And like all remedies, they may not taste good. And if anything I say triggers you in terms of these remedies, then great. That means that the system is processing it in the way it should be processing it. And that I am not saying that I'm free of any of this. I've taken my own medicine. Believe me. Sometimes it's tough to be around me because I'm always taking my own medicine, and it can be a challenge. But for me, it's important to really do the transmuting or the transformation of these patterns, these viewpoints, habits, and patterns that I feel that I have, to shift them into ones that make me more capable to have a fiercely civil open heart, to cultivate the resilience, to stay energized, to stay spiritually nourished within myself, to be of service, and to be able to take on, to increase my scope of influence. And that's a way of framing this for you. It's how can, you know, what again, one little thing each day is going to have a tremendous shift. So I want to talk today about separation, the ailment of separation. If you would like to, we can, if you have missed any of the other ailments, inner storm, paralysis, and fear, they should be available on video. Maybe Todd can let us know how at some point. And how these are impacting us, and how we can see ways of shifting, stepping into another level of who we are, in a sense. So I bring up separation of how this system, the world system, keeps us separate, or how we create separation, or we believe in separation. And this particular ailment and remedy will be very familiar for all of you who have been doing this practice regularly. You'll see why in a moment. Because the whole idea of separation is all about, if you think about it, or I would say think about it, perhaps you come to a conclusion that separation is a mental construct. It's really an illusion that we were never separate, that all the labels we have about each other and about ourselves and how we label and judge and decipher the world is all mental constructs that we learned from our parents, from our place of worship, from our government, from our teachers, from other kids in the playground. And that's how we cultivated how we viewed the world. We collected facts. We made assumptions based on those facts. We developed viewpoints based on those facts. We forget that the facts we collect can never be the whole picture of the whole story, so that we may think we know everything about a topic, but we only know as much as we know, which doesn't mean we're wrong. It simply means we don't have the whole picture. And we have expectations and assumptions and viewpoints, and all of these things shapes how we see things. And they're all mental constructs. I want to give an example. I remember when I was young, I watched a lot of cartoons. And I remember in one cartoon, I don't remember if it was Bugs Bunny or if it was Roadrunner. Please help me for anyone of my generation who might remember this. It might have been a different one, where, let's just go with Roadrunner now. The Roadrunner was running what he does. He's a Roadrunner. And the coyote was chasing him because that's what he does. Why they're stuck in that pattern, maybe they just need some marital counseling or something like that to work that out. But they're stuck in a pattern. And the Roadrunner runs from one state to another, and he crosses this big black line that just is painted or something right through the landscape, right across the highway. Does anybody remember this? We were seeing something like this. So as a young boy, I just assumed that when you crossed a state line, you would cross over a very big, fat black line. It sounds like Roadrunner time, he says, yeah. So I remember the first time in my life when we crossed from growing up in New York City, when we left the state of New York to go to another state, I was looking forward to seeing the big fat black line. And then we were like, and then we crossed, we got to the other state, maybe New Jersey, maybe Pennsylvania, I don't know. Fill in the blanks. There was no black line, and I was freaked out. It's like, what happened? There's supposed to be a delineation here between one state and the next. And that just brought up a whole contemplation throughout my life. And I had the benefit and the fortune of studying Buddhism, where we studied the highest philosophical schools. And we actually spent 2 years with my teacher studying. For 2 years, we studied the difference between something that exists, something that's true, and something that's real, for 2 years. And this question came up to me about that, okay, so there's no black line, and yet we still have boundaries and borders. So does it mean it doesn't exist?
Here's some juice.
Of course, boundaries exist. Are they real? No. They're a mental construct. It's an agreement between human beings. They agree. So you can say, well, if you can't see it and touch it, does it really exist? It really exists because there are many people who have been murdered and killed because of borders and boundaries. So that's a way of just basically saying, yes, they exist. They serve a function. To have a boundary and a border creates structure and a function. And at the same time, if we get caught up in our reactivity around it, it can cause a lot of harm. So I bring this up in the perspective of separation, is to look at how often we take for granted that the way we label things, that it really truly is the way it is. And that therefore, a lot of times how we engage with people, we just assume that because we label them a certain way that they really are that way. Now, in an intellectual idea, it's easy to overcome that, but from a moment to moment gut reaction, I know I still struggle with that. I bring this up in the context of what's unfolding in the United States and what happened 2 weeks ago at the Capitol, is to see that a lot of what is the polarization that's happening is by this idea of a need to label and structure people into compartments, and believing once you've put them there that that is the way they are and that they're inherently that way. And what we've been exploring for the last 2 years, I'm not sure if it's 2 years or 3 years with this practice, every Tuesday morning, time is just doing all kinds of bizarre things, doesn't matter. It's really lovely to be with you all. That when we look at the labels we have of loved one, stranger, and enemy, that they're not as rigid and concrete as we think they are. And that is key to what this idea of separation is, why we're stuck in this cycle and we can't break out of it, is to be able to see that all of our labels are impermanent and that they're usually based on assumptions. And then if we choose to investigate and get past the labels, we get to see people for who they truly are. And we break down the illusions of separation that are causing a lot of the harm and ailments that are causing our own hearts to ail, to be depleted in a sense, and as well as the global heart. And why I bring that up is because on some level they're not even necessary, because that it's the mental constructs that's causing the volatility and the violence. Because for instance, someone might say, yeah, but Joe, adversary, right? So there are people who are harming me. Someone can harm you without you having to label them as adversary. That's, I think, the point. Basically, what's true about the situation is someone is harming you. They're a perpetrator, you could say. Well, that's a label, but someone is harming you, and therefore you can say, someone's harming me. I want to make sure I don't get harmed, and I want them to suffer or to experience the consequences of that. That's not about a separation, but needing to label them as an enemy is what's causing the ailment. Same thing on the other side with loved ones. How much leeway we give to loved ones or people that are of our tribe, how much we don't investigate as clearly and as vigilantly our adversaries in terms of their facts as we do people we feel are on our side. And therefore, on another level, creating distance and not seeing them for who they truly are. And the largest group of that are strangers, is that many of us don't even register who we see as strangers. We don't even register that they exist on a certain level, and not see how much they can teach us, how much we can learn, how much we can, and to think that those are the places we can bridge a lot of the separation. And I bring it up a lot because I don't know, it's my pet peeve or something, but I find it interesting, particularly in a city like DC, where people really, I'm used to, real New York City and Amsterdam, where people engage with each other. They connect. They don't become friends. They just engage. And then
Mm.
literally, I'm living in an apartment building where my neighbor, we share a wall. I'm outside opening my door to go in. My neighbor, who lives right next door to me, walks by and doesn't even acknowledge that I'm there. How, if he can't even acknowledge his neighbor who shares a wall with him, how are we going to solve our world problems and overcome the bigger separations? So I bring this up in the context of what is separation? How is it holding us back from stepping into who we are and overcoming the issues and the challenges we're having? And that the remedy is, and this will seem familiar to you if you've been doing this practice, in every moment, I recognize that loved one, stranger, enemy comes from my own mind. That's the remedy. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to like it. If it triggers you, excellent. And the only thing I ask is a willingness to contemplate it and to take it to a deeper level. And like any medicine, you could say a remedy, it starts working the more you take it. So I want to offer that. I'll say it again, and then we can bring this into our practice. And then afterwards, we can discuss if you have any comments. In every moment, I recognize that loved one, stranger, enemy comes from my own mind. The hope of this is to open up that every individual you come across, if you can let go of the assumptions, you will see them for who they are. Whether you like it or not, tap into a deeper level of their humanity. And I would say 99.9% of the time, find some level of common ground. And that's where the healing, the reconciliation, and the new solutions will emerge. And it may not be with everyone. We talk about, what are the small bridges? It's a new way of looking at love thy neighbor, that it takes on a global aspect. Imagine that idea of what if I took that on just to see what that just feels like. You don't have to accomplish it, but that every human being on this planet is my neighbor. And how would I want to treat them? Hopefully not like my neighbor. That's just my preference. So let's do our practice. Um, Once again, if you're here for the first time, I'll be coaching you through this. There's no right way to do this or wrong way to do this. It's about finding your way. Coming into a way of sitting called power sit, where you're not leaning against the back of your chair. You're sitting with your spine straight without being rigid. Also elongating from the back of your neck, relaxing your jaw and your shoulders, your belly. Bringing your attention to your center and your lower belly. Place approximately the width of 3 fingers below your navel and a third of the way into the body. From the front of the body. So your core, your place of personal power, awareness. From your center, become aware of your contact points, the parts of your body that are connecting with what you're sitting on the floor. From those points, allow yourself to drop in. Let yourself be held. From your center, become aware of your physical body. Allowing yourself to let the body speak to you, simply listening. Learn its language, the wisdom of the body. From your center, become aware of your emotions, We're coming in more into the present moment. First, beginning with the self. What emotions are you present to? Again, no need to label the emotions, no need to judge them. Simply be curious, give them the space to flow. From your center, become aware of your thoughts. What's the quality of your thoughts in this moment? Maintaining a connection with your core, your center. Now bringing awareness to your heart center, your heart, or the middle of your chest, where your heart power resides. Compassion, curiosity, wisdom, courage. From your center and from your heart, become aware of the part of you that may connect with something larger than yourself, for whatever that means for you. Could be humanity, something spiritual, highest values. In this moment, how connected do you feel at this moment to something larger than yourself? Just imagine from that part of you right now that's connected to something larger than yourself, looking back at yourself, just questioning the mental construct you've created about yourself. Just ask the question. You don't have to have answers. You don't have to direct it anywhere, but just this idea, or even do you do that? Do you have a mental construct of who you think you are? With more of an awareness of yourself in this present moment from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. With more of an awareness of yourself in this present moment from your center and from your heart, keeping your eyes closed, become aware of your surroundings. In all directions. Again, just noticing the mental construct you've created about your surroundings. In some way, experiencing your surroundings for what it is at this moment, creating a deeper connection with your surroundings. With more of an awareness of yourself and your surroundings in this present moment from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Maintaining that connection and awareness with yourself and your surroundings, in a sense, maybe softening any kind of separation you might have with yourself and your surroundings, creating a deeper connection, holding on to that as you now, from your center and from your heart, become aware of those in this meditation group. Various parts of North America, Europe, perhaps other parts of the world. From your center and from your heart, with your eyes closed, connecting with those here sharing in this practice. Noticing any mental constructs you might have about particular people or what kind of people you think they are. From your center and from your heart, becoming aware of what level of separation you might be feeling or level of connection. And just recalling with this, in every moment I recognize that loved one, stranger, enemy comes from my own mind. So that boundary between you and them, maybe you can becomes more pliable, that you can play with. And your level of connection with them. With more of an awareness of yourself, your surroundings, and those in this practice from your center and from your heart. Take a full breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Maintaining that awareness of yourself, your surroundings, and those in this meditation practice. From your center and from your heart, becoming aware of all human beings, beginning with those human beings that you would label as loved one. And from your mind's eye or from your heart, who arises? And imagine, what faces do you see? What groups of people do you see? And as you maybe sit or stand face to face with them, just considering, in every moment I recognize that loved one, stranger, enemy comes from my own mind. What conclusions have you come to label them as loved one? Is that label maybe holding you back from seeing them in a deeper, more nuanced way? What assumptions come up around them? And from your heart, with curiosity, to see if you can, again, those boundaries being more pliable, just notice. From your center and from your heart, become aware of those human beings that you would label stranger. Who arises in your heart? How many do you see? And as you stand face to face with them or sit face to face with them, again, considering, in every moment I recognize that loved one, stranger, enemy comes from my own mind. What conclusions did you come to that brought you to assuming that they're strangers? As you pump up your curiosity, seeing if that boundary that's been created in that label becomes more, perhaps more pliable, moving past the assumptions. And from your center and from your heart, become aware of those human beings that you would label adversary. And notice who arises in your heart. What faces do you see? Noticing your own nervous system, allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. And with earnest, considering what conclusions did you come to, what brought you to the conclusion that you would label them adversary. And see if you can muster up the courage and the curiosity to see what if those boundaries were a little more pliable. No, it doesn't have to be, just to consider who's on the other side of that label. And every moment I recognize that loved one, stranger, enemy comes from my own mind. With now more of an awareness of yourself, your surroundings, those in this meditation circle, and all human beings, regardless of how you label them, loved one, stranger, or adversary. Consider in this moment what your philosophy is around interconnectedness and interdependence. And what if on some level, subtle level, we are all connected, whether we like it or not. And let's take a full breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And with that awareness of even the question of in what ways may we all be connected, interdependent, interconnected. Take that into your heart as you bring all human beings into your heart. Bringing your focus back to those in this meditation circle. Taking those in this meditation circle into your heart as you bring your awareness back to your surroundings. Bringing your surroundings into your heart as you bring your awareness back to yourself. And notice the effects of this practice up until this point. Just considering your level, has your level of separation or connection shifted with yourself, your surroundings, and all human beings? Taking that into your nervous system to remember this. Nurturing your heart, filling up your core like a battery. Filling every cell of your body. Nurturing every organ in your body. Feeling gratitude in your heart. And let's take one final breath to close this practice. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. Slowly open your eyes. Look around the room, stretch your body, shake your body. So we started with a motivation. We did our practice. We have a little time to reflect now. Sorry, that went on a lot longer than I had anticipated. But would anybody like to share any reflections on what I said or in the practice?
Joe, I wanted to share something.
Great.
What you were mentioning about how boundaries tend to be in our minds, and that's kind of where it is. It reminds me of a quote from Shakespeare, which is, "Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so."
You just made my day that you quoted Shakespeare, so thanks.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I will follow with another great person, my daughter, who I spoke to for a couple of hours yesterday. She's 32 years old, and when she was a toddler, I thought she was going to be an attorney. She's actually active in a union, and talking to her about judgments. And I think my takeaway was, and it resonated today as well, and thank you for reinforcing, my takeaway was that I need to move away from the label judgment because, compliments are judgments as well. And there's a negative connotation to the word judgments. We always assume it's negative, and we always assume it's something bad that we shouldn't be doing. And then we judge ourselves for doing it. So I'm going to try and think of it more as evaluations than judgments, just because it takes a little bit of the judgment off for me. But what Danielle and I were discussing yesterday was the ways in which every evaluation comes at a cost. And the only time we choose to drop our tendency to evaluate, which I think we all do, is when the cost or the pain that it brings is greater than the pain that will come from trying to change it. If that makes sense. So the pain that our evaluation causes needs to be greater than the pain of the effort of changing our tendency to evaluate all the time.
Yeah, I think, and I think if I may add, I mean, that's a way.
Yes. I
And
would love an and.
and I'm not saying I have a different or better way, but that's a way. But I think that's where I connected to what, it's like a wake-up call. Wake-up calls are usually painful and
Yes,
very uncomfortable. That's when we
exactly.
are shocked out of our patterns and our patterns, and we are open to something new. One thing I want to say that I meant to say and didn't is that when we break these patterns, we remember that in the heart there are no boundaries. There is no separation in the heart.
Hmm.
That's why I delineate it's a mental construct.
Hmm.
When we can get into our hearts and our humanities, we can always find common ground. We are connected to nature, to the earth, to one another, to ourselves.
Absolutely, but not bad. But the allure of these boundaries is that when we other, we are supporting our sense of connect, a false sense of being connected to a smaller group that we can
Right,
wrap our minds around.
right.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that's what happens with the nervous. It's a desire. It's a need for safety. It's a reaction
Yeah,
to want to
yeah,
be safe.
yeah. It
It's a
always is. It
reactive. It's a
always is.
reactive response, a trauma response to hold on to what's familiar. And I guess that's my message with fierce civility and what's unfolding in this country and the planet is, can we muster up the courage to make sure we're safe and to get into that uncomfortable place of reaching out, connecting with what's unfamiliar,
Yeah.
because they're not going away. That's the message for, the people, and what is it going to take for us to find first the healing and the reconciliation before we can come up with healthy solutions that are beneficial for all of us.
Yeah.
Wishing them go away, or that's not going to happen.
They're not even evil. They're not bad. They're scared, they're whatever, but
That's your viewpoint, right?
my
Yeah.
viewpoint. It's the only
Yeah.
one I know.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Danielle.
Yes.
I have something real quick. I dropped an article in the chat that really deeply affected me this morning, and it kind of is like perfect because the whole concept about labeling is that everything we label is a construct of our own mind, including bad and evil. And some of what Max Gordon touches in there, that what I consider evil, referring to the political environment, actually brought some things about that would not have happened without that quote unquote evil. So it just reminded me to really question when and how I label, and take more distance, and trying to be less reactionary in the moment, and I guess also kind of like a trust that in the end the universe bends towards justice, so not to get so riled up emotionally. And then the last thing I just want to say that may your city tomorrow be filled with peace.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, Joe, this is Tammy really quickly.
Okay.
I am really touched by what Shelley said, and I'm actually also very inspired to consider language. The distinction between judgment and evaluation is one that I'm going to be thinking about. So I really appreciate that, Shelley. Also, something that you say often, Joe, I actually was listening for it this time. I didn't hear it, so I got to bring it forward. You encourage us as a mantra of being to engage in presence, awareness, balance, and flow. It's something that I repeat to myself quite often: presence, awareness, balance, and flow. And I was thinking, I think often about the flow between evaluation and curiosity. And if we could maintain balance and flow between evaluation and curiosity, and evaluation and curiosity, just like an infinity loop going around and around between those two, I imagine that as a way to, if not break through the polarization, at least sort of minimize its presence in my own life and my own mind. So I really appreciate all the elements here coming together in this meditation. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Tammy. And that comforts me, because I want to share something, you make an announcement. Before I want to say that, I say part of this is to remember, if you can see that if the idea of loved one, stranger, and adversary comes from your own mind, then you have the power. It's just a self-empowerment thing, that it's yours to shift. And that literally what you've just spoken, going from judgment to evaluation or assessment, pumping up your curiosity, which are all elements of the heart, right? That's what softens the rigidity of the labels. The labels, if you need the labels, that's okay. It's the problem starts with how rigid they are, and then therefore not seeing through. Anyway, I just want to say thank you all for coming. As always, it's always such a deep honor and pleasure to work with you. I want to announce, well, first of all, if you want to make a donation from your heart, here's the link. All the money goes to the Fierce Civility Project to support this kind of work. I am making an announcement that I'm going to go on a 4-week retreat in the month of February, which is a big deal for me. It's a lot to organize, and it's really important to my heart. And I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to do it. That's very auspicious. We will continue the practices, and my wonderful team will make sure that things go well. But after hearing all of you speak, and Tammy, and the fact that you're using the vocabulary we discuss here, my request is that you keep coming and that you keep working with each other. I might try to stop in. I don't know if that's going to happen. I have still this idea that I'm going to, but I probably won't, but we'll see. But that we will continue this with the same format. And I hope that you continue to join and continue to share with each other what you're learning and growing, and support one another and keep the community strong. I will certainly be thinking of you often. I will be here next week, but starting, I think, the 2nd of February, I won't be. So, and we'll announce what we'll be doing, but I just wanted to share that. If you're interested in doing a wonderful workshop that's starting in February, Shelley and Tori are leading that, called The 4 Pillars of Resilient Power. It's an online training. If you want to know about that, look on our website. Todd just put it's a wonderful way to get in touch with your own authentic power, build a better relationship with that. A lot of the work we're doing, this is a more embodied process with that. So it's a wonderful complement to what we're doing here. Raise your hand, Shelley and Tori. And if you have any questions for us, we can answer that. So as Chris brought us into our dedication, may all the merits that we've created, all the energy we've created here, bring a sense of peace to the city of Washington, D.C., but to all the capitals around the country, to all the countries around the world. May this practice help people to step into a deeper level of heart connection, finding the true interconnectedness and interdependence of us all, for ourselves, for the well-being of all beings, and for the planet itself. And may all beings on this planet have enough fresh water to drink and food to eat. And may all governments and leaders govern from a place of this heart sense of connection, interconnection, interdependence, and not greed and fear. Thank you. See you next week.
Bye-bye. See you next week.
Thank you.